feels like we live in a world where we just constantly get distracted by external stuff like our phone or, people knocking on the door or colleagues coming up to us and trying to ask us questions, or our bosses, or, the television, or hearing loud noises or hearing aeroplanes from up above. It's very easy to fall into the trap of thinking that the world is against you. But something that I didn't realise until I read the book Indistractable by Neri Yao, or however you say his name, I still don't know how to pronounce his name. The reason you get distracted is 90% because of what's inside of your brain, your intrusive thoughts, the things that you randomly think of in the middle of the day. Earlier, I was trying to meditate and I started thinking of Minecraft. I was thinking of the Syndicate project. Why was I thinking of that? Deep work is something that is valued so much higher than anything else in the modern working world. Being able to sit there and focus for 2 hours at a time, or even longer sometimes, on one task, and being able to narrowly and deeply achieve the task is something that most people can't even do these days, bro, because there's so many internal distractions and also external distractions. Maybe you want to be the best person in your office, or maybe you want to be a YouTuber, or maybe you want to be a writer. But if you keep allowing yourself to have a shallow brain where you're unable to focus on one thing at once, then the chances are, bro, it'll be really, really difficult, if not impossible, to compete with the people that are able to do deep work all the time. The ideal situation in the modern world, bro, well, in life in general, is to be able to minimize internal and external distractions. So that would be the intrusive thoughts and also your phone going off and people knocking on your door. And being able to maximize periods of long stretches of deep work where you're able to get all of your work done, whether you're a YouTuber, writer, working in the office or working from home. You will just so easily just be ahead of the competition, bro. And in this video, I'm going to tell you everything that I've personally done in the last month or so to actually start doing deep work every single day for YouTube, writing. You will literally become better than everyone else at getting the work done. You probably have most of your work done, bro, by the end of Monday. My name's Kian, and 2 years ago, when it was in the middle of the second or third lockdown, I was sitting at home in my bedroom and I was trying to produce some new music. I've been producing music just as a hobby for like most of my life, pretty much. I would be sitting there at the desktop and I would be trying to produce, the things that prop up your phone, you can buy like a £5 one on Amazon. I had that next to the computer and I had YouTube videos running. And on top of that, I had intrusive thoughts of this girl that I was really interested in at the time that no longer wanted to meet anymore. I was trying to produce music, bro, but the whole time, not only was there this racket in the side of my ear talking to me about, I don't know, running or something on YouTube, just actual random bollocks, but I was also thinking about a girl that didn't want me anymore. It was so difficult at that period in my life and beyond to actually get into a flow of deep work where I could actually create music that I loved, because my internal distractions of the girl and the external distractions of my phone right next to me were causing huge issues with disruption. Not only was I thinking about that girl, I was also deeply insecure, probably about being short. Being small. I was thinking, how's any girl gonna like me because I'm short? And then I was also having weird existential fears of death at the same time. I remember one time I was sitting there trying to write a song and all I could think about was dying. I could not concentrate on one thing at once, bro. And I think you probably go through the same things, whether you're thinking about a girl or thinking about insecurities. It can feel impossible to actually get into a flow state where you're trying to do your work and not think about anything else. But these days, bro, I wake up super early. I woke up today at 6:30 a.m. I came out here and I'm doing an hour of deep work before I go to the gym. I'm trying to start a new rota where I actually wake up and do the work before I go to the gym because I just really want to get this stuff done for YouTube, bro. I do focused, narrow blocks of deep work every single day, and in between that I fill that time with reading or going for walks just to recharge my brain. I figured out how to do all of this stuff, bro. There was a little bit of YouTube that had an influence in this, but the main thing was that I read the book by Cal Newport called Deep Work. It's basically the leading book in focused, narrow, deep work. And I've implemented a lot of tactics into my daily life from that book that has led me to be able to go through every single day where I can get into some sort of flow state where I do deep focused work at my computer. For example, right now I am doing deep work talking to you with this camera. I'm gonna walk you through just a few things that I've personally done to actually destroy, to actually, get into a flow state every day and do deep work. Now, before we actually go into that, we should probably talk about very quickly, bro, what is deep work? Deep work, essentially, if you haven't figured it out by now or don't already know it, it is very simple. It's just a stretch of time where you do deep focused work where you do not think about anything else or have anything else open. So for example, if you're an author and you're trying to write a book, that would be you coming into your room, having a 1 hour timer, preferably, which is what I do, and you sit there with the Word document open and you just write. You don't have anything else open, you don't have any distractions around you, it's peace and quiet, and you sit there and you focus on that word that you're writing. The great thing about deep work is that if someone is doing that deep work as an author compared to someone else that has got Twitter or Instagram downloaded and in between writing now, look and check Twitter and start replying to people and that, they end up falling into a thing which is called shallow work, where they're unable to concentrate on one thing because they keep switching between tasks, which is caused from distractions or actually switching to something else. They get something called attention residue, which means that it's so much more difficult to pull themselves back into the main thing that they was doing in the first place. So the person that's able to sit there for an hour and just focus on the work will absolutely wreck, mate. I'll murk the people that are, checking Twitter or, writing on the train or something, like Chris Chibnall who writes Doctor Who. And something before we actually get into the tips, bro, is that I find that personally doing deep work first thing in the morning or second thing in the morning after going to the gym is probably the best way to do it, because you've had nothing else in the day to poison your brain before you go out and you actually start working. As in, you're not checking your phone, you're not watching TV or YouTube or something. You can just wake up, do your morning routine and get straight to work. But this is something that we'll get into right now. One of the best things you can experience in your life, at least from my personal experience, is working for a long stretch of time with a completely blank mind. The thing is, when you do deep work, bro, you eventually reach this point, which I believe is called a flow state, where your mind is completely devoid of thoughts. You no longer have intrusive thoughts. You're not thinking about what you want for dinner later on in the day. You are one with the task, and there's nothing more satisfying than finishing a block of deep work. And that is one of the main reasons, apart from getting rich, bro, and doing the best work possible better than everyone around you, it will make you happier in the long term. The first step of mastering deep work, or actually just adding it into your everyday routine, is to first, it will be incredibly difficult to get into deep work if you have not done the internal work to begin with. Now, something that's great about deep work is it's something called productive meditation. Now, we all know what meditation is. When you sit there and you just try to focus on your breath or focus on nothing. And we all know how frustrating it can be in the beginning stages with meditation, where you're sitting there and you just keep thinking about girls, arse, work. You think about girls, you think about something that someone said 2 years ago that you didn't like. You was thinking about the way your friend looked at you the other week, and now you're overthinking it. You just can't concentrate on actually meditating and focusing on your breath. Deep work is essentially the same thing, except it's something a little bit more productive, where you're focused on a task. At least what I found from my personal experience is that the internal work that I've done alongside deep work over the last 2 years has hugely impacted in a positive way the way that I can actually do deep work. Now, I'm talking about things like meditation. I've been doing that every day at least for the last 3 months and beyond. I've also been practicing mindfulness since I was 19 years old. So that's literally focusing on the sounds around me. What does this thing in the distance look like? I hone in and focus on these things. And there's also something else that is taught in therapy that I was actually talking to my mate about, because he's doing a counselling degree. It is called cognitive behavioural therapy. And what that essentially is, as far as I'm aware, is you train your brain to catch the negative thoughts as you have them. I reckon Eckhart Tolle, or however you say his name, has also talked about this in his own book, where let's say you're sitting there, or you're trying to meditate, and you suddenly have a thought that comes up saying, you're not good enough, or you got a tiny cock. I don't know, something like that. That is when you stop your brain and say, hang on, why did you think that? Why are you thinking that? And then you break it down in your brain. Right, I thought that because of this and that. And then you say, right, where did this thought come from? Well, maybe in my childhood, I had this experience where someone said I had a tiny cock. Something like that. Maybe someone pantsed me and then they said I had a tiny winky. That type of thing. Breaking down those thoughts using cognitive behavioural therapy is a really impactful way, on top of mindfulness and on top of practicing meditation every day, at least something that I try to do. It really helps you with your everyday focus. I'm able to read for like an hour at a time, bro, without even getting distracted. The same thing with deep work. I mean, that's more of a struggle. I'm not saying I'm perfect with it, but I'm able to focus deeply on one task at a time because I've spent so long doing meditation, mindfulness, and about 2 years ago, I started accidentally doing cognitive behavioural therapy on myself. I believe anyway. I'm not a psychologist. If you can work on the internal work every single day, that will deeply affect in the positive way how you do your deep work. If you go into your deep work stretches beforehand having loads of intrusive thoughts, or you've just been fearing death the whole time, or you've just been checking your phone, which has caused lots of insecurities. Oh, this person's richer than me. Oh, this person's fitter than me. Oh, this person's got a girlfriend and I don't. That's going to severely inhibit the way that you're able to work, because you'll constantly be thinking of that, and it'll be much more difficult to actually focus on one task and reel yourself back in when you get distracted. That's not to say that when you do deep work, regardless regardless, that I don't get distracted, bro. There'll be moments where I catch myself and I'll just for like 40 seconds straight just sat there like that, just doing nothing, you know? But that's the point where, because I've done mindfulness and meditation for so long, I'm able to actually catch myself and say, right, reel it back in, Kin. Refocus on the task and get back to work. Basically, focus on becoming a better human being, better at controlling your mind. And therefore, the deep work will become so much easier as a result of it. The way I do this practically is I started meditating every day for like 1 or 2 minutes. I forced myself, I just sat there with a timer. And eventually, it just became a habit. And now, today, for example, I only meditate for like 8 minutes, but it's so much more effective now, being able to actually focus on my breath. Again, before we actually get into the process of deep work, now we need to talk about something called environment. Now, we obviously know what the word environment means. I'm going to give you a few examples of some very famous people that have used deep work and their environment to actually get their work done in a more effective way. And a lot of these people you're going to recognize, bro, and you're going to realize that they've actually used deep work in their own lives to become as successful as they have. Now, the first person is Carl Jung. I believe that's how you say his name. You've definitely heard of his name. Now, I'm not actually too sure what he's famous for still. I haven't really looked into him, but I know from the book Deep Work by Cal Newport, he tells a story about Carl Jung. He used to, when he needed to get loads of work done, he would lock himself away in this cabin that he either built or he bought or whatever, in the woods. He would be well away from everyone else. This cabin had nothing in it. All he did was sit there and focus for about 4 hours at a time on writing or whatever it was his deep work period was. After that, he would finish the work in the cabin where he had no distractions, no kids, no people knocking on the door, no postmen or dogs or something. And he would meditate for a bit after his work, and then he'd just go walking around in the countryside, in the forest, for hours after that, fall asleep, wake up the next day and do it again. Another example of someone who used deep work to become highly successful, J.K. Rowling. Now, regardless of whatever opinion you have of her, we cannot deny that she is a master writer. What she did when she was writing the Deathly Hallows, which is the final Harry Potter book, she told a story, which is also in the book Deep Work by Cal Newport, of how when she was trying to write her final book, she physically could not do it because there was a gardener that came in and the kids came home, then there was dogs or something. She was so distracted in her home office that she ended up buying a hotel, which is actually fairly close to the place that inspired her to write Harry Potter in the first place. That's some castle or some shit. And because she made such a drastic change in her environment and she was in this quiet hotel room every day where she could get away, she ended up falling in love with that process. She was able to be away from all the noise, all the distractions, and just sit there and focus on writing a new chapter every single day. And then another person that I thought of myself is Bon Iver. It's Bon Iver, the singer. I think he's a pop singer. He made the album For Emma Forever Ago. Great album, should check it out one day. What he did to get that album complete, bro, was he locked himself away in a cabin, very similar to Carl Jung, away from everyone else. And he just sat there and made songs every day. He focused on playing his guitar and singing and recording it all into his digital audio workstation or whatever it's called, I don't know. The reason I'm bringing up all of these examples, bro, is that environment has a huge impact on what you're able to do when you do deep work. Now, if you're trying to sit in the lounge where your little sister or little cousin is sitting there watching Hannah Montana or something, that's showing my age, then the chances are you're not actually going to be able to be focused on the work. I'm very fortunate that my parents recently built an outhouse in our house, and I have this whole little room to myself where I'm away from people. I can sit here and just focus on my work for ages. I mean, right now I'm doing deep work. I'm in this little room that's well away from everyone else. I don't have to really worry about how loud I'm being because no one's gonna hear it, bro. I'm incredibly grateful for the position I'm in. But I also recognize that not everyone is in that position. Maybe the quietest place in your house, bro, is your bedroom. Or maybe you personally, what my friend Hassan used to do, or still does, is that to get peace and quiet away from his flatmates, he would leave the house and he'd walk to his university's library where they have these little rooms, little chambers. And he could go into that room where it was pretty much peace and quiet and just focus on the task, which is really, really important, bro. Your environment has such a huge impact. And I'm not talking just about, just the room itself. Do you have this little room away from everywhere else where you can't hear things? It also might just be your actual workstation. You know, you have your computer in front of you or your laptop, for example, but if you've got loads of shit hanging around everywhere, like books and chocolates and little sweet wrappers and bottles and everything, that's gonna clutter your mind in some way. At least that's what I felt from my experience, bro. I try my best to keep my workstation as clean as possible, and I do find that it helps stopping me from getting distracted and I can just get straight to the work. So not only do you have to do the internal work, but also your environment has to sort of be conducive to you to be able to do deep work in the most effective way possible. I would recommend somewhere away from the parents, away from your flatmates or family in general, somewhere quiet where you're not going to hear drilling all the time, somewhere where people aren't going to be knocking on your door. It would also help to actually go up to the people that you live with and say, hey, I'm going to work right now for like 90 minutes. It sounds a bit autistic, I know, but being able to tell them, I'm just going to go work for an hour or two. Is it okay if you don't knock on the door unless there's a huge emergency that you need me for? That would be super valuable, bro. Trust me, I've tried it. Sometimes they don't listen, but that's why I'm here at 6:30 a.m. because it would help to actually just be away from everyone. This is why I'm able to get into some sort of flow state doing deep work right now. The next step is before deep work. Now, something that I found personally that really helps with my process of deep work is having a little ritual. So what it usually is for me, for example, I'm just going to use my own personal experiences. I will wake up, I will do my morning routine. Today, for example, I woke up at 6:30. I sat there and meditated for about 8 minutes or whatever. Then I made my bed, I got ready into my gym clothes, I went and brushed my teeth, I made a coffee, which I actually usually don't do. I usually do that after the gym, but since I'm doing deep work first, usually what I do every other day before deep work is I make a coffee or a decaf or something just to down it and then I can get to work. So that's technically part of my ritual. So it felt weird if I didn't have a coffee before it. So I drink the coffee, I come out here, once the coffee's empty, I start the timer, which is over there, and then I start the camera and I start recording whatever video I planned a night before. Just a side note, planning your day the night before is so valuable, bro. It saves you at least 15 minutes of your time in the day. I mean, authors like Brian Tracy actually I've got the book down here for some reason, don't know why I brought it with me, but Brian Tracy's Eat That Frog. He believes that planning the day ahead can save you up to 2 hours of just thinking and working time in the next day, which is kind of mental. I'm still trying to figure out how he did the maths with that, but I'm just going to assume that he's correct because he knows more than me and he's richer and he's sexier. All right. So planning the day a day ahead is super helpful. Personally, what I do is at 5 p.m. the day before, I just write down all the tasks I need to do, order it using the ABCDE method in terms of, importance to least importance, what I need to do straight away, which was recording this video. I personally find, bro, that having a little ritual, I don't mean, getting up, starting a fire and dancing around, but not like that type of thing. I don't mean being a weirdo. I mean, waking up, having a little morning routine, if you can afford to wake up earlier before work or whatever it is you're doing, or just getting up earlier in general when no one's awake, having a little ritual that you do, which might be waking up, meditating, doing push-ups, drinking coffee, something like that, sort of sets your brain up to prepare you to actually do the work. So I know for me, once I've downed that coffee, I am ready to start working because I've got the caffeine in me, I've set up everything, I'm ready, I've brushed my teeth, I'm feeling good and I can start recording. Something that would be super valuable, bro, is that every time you're about to do deep work, just do something beforehand to prepare yourself. It might be getting some water bottles so you don't have to get up and leave the room. It might be having a piss so you don't have to leave the room. It might be getting a coffee and downing it beforehand so you can have more of the shut off caffeine things that make you more awake. I don't know, I'm chatting complete shit now, but you get what I'm saying. Some sort of ritual before I wake up, meditate, get ready, drink a coffee, and then I go to work. At least that's what I've done today. Outside of the deep work, the next step is actually after deep work. And honestly, bro, I think this might be the most important step of this entire thing. And the reason it's the most important step is that something that heavily inhibits your ability to do deep work is actually what you do outside of the deep work, that downtime in between or at the end of the day. Now, something that I was talking to my mate about the other day is that a lot of people, when they have a 9 to 5 and they come home, what they value as the best thing in their day in general is when they actually get home. They see the work as the pain, and they see afterwards watching TV or, zombieing out on their iPhone on social media or YouTube or something as the part that they're going to be the most rewarded for. They're going to feel the best as they do it. But what I used to find, bro, when I used to work at a factory is I'd get home at about 6 o'clock or something and I'd sit there and just scroll on my phone for an hour. But all it did was just make me feel worse. There is something that I believe the book The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy has coined. There's a term called avoiding dirty water in your glass. And what I mean by that is because deep work is so mentally taxing, it requires a lot of conscious attention. It will drain your brain. That's why you can only do so much of deep work every day. I mean, most people, I think it's been scientifically proven that the highest amount of deep work that someone is able to achieve is like 4 hours, maybe 5 hours, if I'm guessing. If you do 90 minutes of deep work in the morning and you do another 90 minutes later on, so let's say you've got 3 hours in, you really need to worry or pay close attention to the type of water that you're putting into your body, bro. And I don't literally mean water, although that would help to have clean water. What I mean is not allowing your brain to be poisoned by external things afterwards that can completely defunk you and mess you up for the next day. And why I was talking about the workers is that I didn't even realize this, bro, but if I wasn't going home and zombieing out watching YouTube or texting people or playing video games, I would actually be able to recharge a lot more effectively the next day to go back to work and work even harder, or at least have more focus when I'm working. Doing all that stuff, going on social media, texting random people, texting girls, all that was doing was muddying my brain so I couldn't properly recharge. That's a huge problem, bro. Something I do these days is that in between periods of deep work, apart from today because I'm going to the gym after this, is I usually sit there for a second. I just allow myself to relax once I finish this block of deep work. I go out there, I either eat or I'll just get straight to reading. I find that because reading is sort of a narrow focused task, if I just focus on that for a little while, it doesn't really feel like I have to focus on it. I'm just relaxing, really. I do enjoy reading now. It's one of my favourite things to do. Me being able to, go on short walks around the place that I live, a place that I recognise and know how to walk around without getting hit by a car so my brain don't have to do loads of work. Me reading books after doing deep work. Eating, just relaxing, talking to the family a little bit. Having that in between and after my periods of deep work is really good at recharging my brain. I find that after I've read a book for an hour, I'm raring to go. Like, I really want to get up and just come back in here and start working again. But if I was sitting there on my phone, there has been days where I've had some weakness, but I'll be honest, there's been days where I've finished deep work, I've gone in there, I've checked my phone, and suddenly I get this compulsion to have a wank. Who said that? Who said that? No. Okay, yeah, that is exactly what it is. Some days I have a bit of a weakness. It's a habit I'm still trying to break, which I'm actually doing a really good job with recently, but anyway, that's a side note. I'll end up doing that and my brain will just feel so icky afterwards, like I've just spent a little while just poisoning my brain with all of these images and stuff on social media. It's really not good. And I find that it's so much harder to actually get into deep work afterwards, whereas compare that, obviously, it's pretty common sense, bro. Reading a book in comparison, or maybe focusing on one episode of a television show, which is usually what I do at night, is something that is far healthier for my brain. It isn't completely stimulating me, like, throwing me about, and when I go back to doing deep work, I can't focus on one task at a time. So after deep work, it's super important, bro, that at the end of your work day and also in the periods between your periods of deep work, you really need to pay attention on the dirty water that you're allowing to enter your brain. You should be really prejudiced about what you allow to enter your brain, bro. You want to be better than everyone else. Let's just be straightforward. You want to be successful. You have this ego inside of you that tells you want to be the best performing person in your field. You want to be the best person out of your friend group. It sounds horrible. I'm not saying you want them to fail, but life in a way, sometimes you do view it, bro, as a competition, I would imagine. Sometimes this happens to me subconsciously. Deep down, we have these dark desires of beating everyone else and being the most successful person. You want to be better. You want to better yourself and also beat everyone else. Let's just admit it, bro. I'm not saying there's not a place for it. I do go on social media sometimes in the day, but I pick my times in the day when to do it to avoid or minimize the damage that it does to my brain when I'm on it. My screen time these days is like 40 minutes a day, sometimes less, sometimes a bit more. It's very important that you don't allow things in your day to poison the work that you're going to do later. Just think about the two writers. One that does deep work every day and then after that reads or goes on a walk in nature, compared to the person that does deep work every day or tries to, but in between he watches television, switches between shows on Netflix, argues with people on Twitter, goes on Instagram and looks at Instagram models. Who do you think's actually going to have a better output of work? Even if they technically both do the same input when it comes to deep work, they have the same desktop, everything. Obviously, the person that's reading and going on walks is going to perform better. So avoid dirty water, don't let shit enter your brain, and your deep work periods will be so much better. You won't even believe, bro. You won't recognize yourself. My ability to remember things, recall things, and focus on work compared to January, I'm like a different human, bro. It's actually kind of scary what I've done to myself, but I love it. Okay, now this is the bit that you was probably waiting for. Oh, the world is against me. My phone is attacking me. My parents won't stop knocking on the door. All that sort of stuff. Oh, television, oh, social media, it's all that stuff, okay? We know, obviously, that there are external distractions, and a lot of the external distractions in the world are put here to take money from us. Social media is there to steal our attention because it makes money for the people with the algorithms and buying ads and all that. Obviously, we know that the big companies in the world do not have our best interests at heart, but there's no point victimizing ourselves, bro. I am able to only have, like I said earlier, 40 minutes of screen time. I think Hamza says that he has like no distractions in his day, he just works and that. People like that, Cal Newport, loads of authors around the world are able to just focus on their tasks every day. And they're not complaining about how distracting the world is. They just don't allow it to enter their brain. They don't allow their water to get dirty. So if we can do it, bro, if literally me can do it, I'm 21 years old. I was a bum 2 months ago. I was waking up at 1 p.m, 2 p.m, wanking every day. Do you know what I mean? Eating shit. Still working on that. All right. I'm doing the slowest cut of my life. I call it a cut. Okay. I'm getting distracted. If I can do deep work every single day, bro, if I can read every single day and only have 40 minutes of screen time when maybe I'll watch like one YouTube video a day, not even that sometimes, bro, then who's to say that you can't do it as well? I was so broken mentally not too long ago, but we're so fortunate, bro, that our minds are plastic. We have something called neuroplasticity, where you can rewire your brain and train it to have a different way of thinking. I would never have imagined in January that I would be having the lifestyle that I have right now, or that it was even mentally possible for me to have reading and working. I used to just play video games, watch YouTube all the time, completely distract myself with you know, wanking. Every day, he's out of control. He can't control himself. You know what I'm saying? I've personally found that the biggest distractions that I face in my everyday life, outside of internal distractions, is 1, my phone, 2, my parents, and 3, usually my desktop. What is on my desk that is distracting me? Now, I think the desktop step is actually really simple, bro. If you don't want to be distracted by stuff in your room, keep it out of your sight. Or if you're going to work in your bedroom, for example, face an opposite direction to all the stuff that you're usually distracted by. Let's say you've got an Xbox in your room. It might be helpful to not work in the direction of where the Xbox is. Just having it in your vicinity will severely hinder your ability to concentrate. I think it's actually been proven in the book Indistractable that just having your phone in your immediate vicinity or in your, you know, visual area, I don't know what I'm saying, I don't know how to word it, that will actually distract you, even if there hasn't been a notification, even if you're not distracted by anything on the phone. Just merely the presence of your phone in your room will actually severely hinder your ability to focus on the task in front of you. So something that I personally do for my phone, for example, is whenever I come in here, this is a different phone, I've said this in a million videos, I don't actually use this phone, it's just for recording. My actual phone is out there in the kitchen. So I get to focus on this and I'm not suddenly thinking, I wonder if someone sent me a message, because it doesn't matter, bro. It's not anywhere in my environment. Again, it always comes down to environment. So my desktop is generally clean, although there is an empty mug right now. My phone is nowhere to be seen. It is invisible. It doesn't distract me. I don't hear any notifications because I've got all of that turned off. I've got a video, you know, breaking down how to actually make your phone indistractable. It'll probably be uploaded by now. So your phone and your desktop has now been sorted. Just keep it out of the room when you're working, bro. If you feel like you need to use the internet, just try your best to avoid it. Don't bring your phone in. You will get distracted. It's best to just not have it in here. The last thing that I need to talk about is your parents. Now, something that I find happens is that when you go to start doing work, the most frustrating thing that can happen is someone suddenly just walking in and going to do something. My friend actually told me a story the other day about how he was doing this audible meditation thing where he had these headphones on. He was laying there on his bed one day and then he heard the door knock and he just ignored it. He was thinking in his head, oh, maybe if I ignore them, they'll realise that I'm focusing and they'll go away. But his brother was trying to get his attention and he was ignoring him because he was just hoping he would leave because he's trying to focus. And then his brother came over and started pushing his chest saying, oh, what are you doing? I need your attention. And it really wound him up. That's pretty much what your parents may be doing to you, bro. Now, the other day, I was really struggling to find a block of time where I could actually get into doing work because there was so much stuff going on around the house. So I came in here, I set a 30-minute timer, bro. Within 2 minutes, my dad burst in and started picking up stuff in his room. And I was like, oh, Dad. But then I had to catch myself and realise, look, I didn't tell him that I was working. But there may be a situation, which is even worse, bro, where you actually do tell your parents, oh, is it all right? I'm working for like an hour at the moment. Is it all right if you don't come in unless it's actually an emergency? Now, I've tried this, and my mum, for example, will still walk in. She'll walk in and say like, oh, I'm going upstairs. What? Why are you telling me this? Is that an emergency? That's what I'm saying. But the thing is, you have to be a little bit empathetic about this, bro. You can't blame them for being the way they are. Only we realise the importance of our attention generally. Obviously, everyone will say, yeah, I know the importance of, you know, staying focused and that. But most people don't know the methods that I've talked through in this video, bro. It's very important that you don't start viewing your parents as rude when they start doing this. Even if you told them, can you not come in? The best thing you can do, bro, is take accountability for it and find a window of time where this is the least likely to happen. With me, for example, waking up at 6:30 and doing an hour of deep work at this point right now is far more valuable and productive for me than working, which what I usually do is at about 10 a.m. because my mum will be up, my dad will be at work, so he won't be there. But my mum will probably be going out at some point, so she starts knocking on the door saying, oh, I'm going out, see you later. Like, obviously you don't want these distractions because it will interrupt your flow state, your deep work. I find that waking up earlier before everyone else, even though it's difficult, bro, those first few days, the grueling process of pulling yourself out of bed, eventually you don't actually realise how easy it is to start waking up early. I was waking up again past midday every single day for like a year and a half. I wake up at 6:30 now, and it's actually been a fairly easy process doing that just because I've got into the momentum of it. Waking up earlier than everyone else will allow you that time, or earlier before work. It allows you the time to focus on a task where you're undistracted, where the world is asleep, and you can just get on with it. Now, yeah, I said I was going to try and keep this short, and it's bloody 25 hours. That's completely my bad. But this has got a load of value in this video, bro. The last section I'm going to walk you through right now is just some little deep work hacks. I don't like the word hacks. I don't know why I wrote that down. Deep work tricks to actually maximize your productivity during your deep work periods. Now, these are going to be stuff that we've all heard about, I hope. But I'm going to walk through it anyway, just in case you haven't, because this stuff has completely 10 times my productivity in every field. The first thing is the Pareto principle, or you may recognize it as the 80-20 rule. Now, the 80-20 rule is that, without going into all the description about it, it states that 20% of something will generally lead to 80% of the results. So, for example, if you're doing your work, if you're sitting there doing work, it is usually 20% of the tasks that you need to get done that will equate to 80% of your success or your productivity. So let's say, for example, you've got 10 tasks that you need to complete out of the day. I find that it's usually 1 to 2 of those tasks that are the most important. Frog, for example, there's Brian Tracy talks about eating the frog, which is the most important and difficult task of your day. It may be 1 or 2 tasks out of 10 that are the most important things that will get you the most results. So if you're a writer, for example, yeah, you could be going on, I don't know, you could be going on Photoshop and painting up a little book cover, or you could be proofreading it, or you could be watching other people's YouTube videos about how to write a book. But realistically, bro, the most important task that will get you the most results is actually sitting there every day and writing. If you're a YouTuber, the most important task is recording the videos and posting them. Now, editing, doing the thumbnails is also very important. But if we're using the 80-20 rule, recording the videos should be the first thing you do every day. You need to get your most difficult task out of the way. And just think about it, bro. Let's say you've got 10 tasks to do on YouTube, or changing your YouTube banner icon, replying to comments, putting community posts, on top of recording, editing, uploading, thinking of video ideas. What if you only picked the most important tasks every day that gave you the most returns, which would be recording, uploading, probably doing the thumbnails and titles, and editing? And if I focus on that every single day, that is what will get me the most returns out of this YouTube channel. And it will also make you feel the most fulfilled, because you know this is the most difficult task. Waking up, you don't necessarily want to do the most difficult thing you've got to do in a day. But I've managed to put myself into a habit of waking up and forcing myself to do the most difficult thing. And it makes you feel so much better, Brian. Once you're in that habit, imagine competing against the person that's in the habit of doing the most difficult thing in the day at the end of the day. Or even worse, they don't even do it and they leave it to the last minute each time. You're going to destroy them, bro. You're going to shag them. But no. The next thing is Parkinson's law. Now, I'm going to show you something very quickly. I've got a little timer there, if you can see it. Might have to zoom in. I set an hour timer, at least today I've set an hour timer. And what it does is it constantly gives me a visual reminder of how much time I actually have to complete this task. Now, let's say, for example, you've been given a deadline for your university coursework, which will be in 2 months' time. And you're thinking, oh, right, that's well loads of time. What usually happens, bro? You don't end up doing the task until like the week before, or even a few days before, or maybe you do an all-nighter the night before, and that's when you get everything done. I mean, that's a story of all of my friends. That's a story of myself when I was at university. What I've learned from Parkinson's law is that it states that your work will mold and expand, or what's the opposite of expand? Decrease, I don't know, to fit the time that you've allocated to it. So I find that, let's say, for example, I gave myself 3 hours to get this video done. I'd probably dawdle, I'd probably get distracted, I'd probably go for a piss or something, I'd probably just get up and walk around. But because I've only given myself an hour, I needed to sit here and be like, right, I've got to film this right now. And it's kept me so much more focused, bro. And just having that little bump of challenge, oh, I have an hour to do this, that focuses me so much more and actually allows me to fall into a flow state. So let's say, for example, you're trying to write a book, or you're trying to write an article or something. Rather than spending all day doing it and in between checking your phone, getting distracted, eating a cheeseburger, you know, all that sort of stuff, give yourself an hour timer, whether it's, I wouldn't recommend on your phone because it being there might distract you, but I've personally bought a little like £8 timer, which works really well for me, at least at the moment. And I set an hour, Imagine if you just sat there for an hour. You only had 60 minutes to complete this entire thing. It will force you to sort of get your act together, buck your ideas up, matey, and start doing the work quicker, more efficiently, and you will only focus on that task. Now, you may be asking, oh yeah, but Kean, wouldn't that just make you make worse output? You'll be so panicked about the time that you'll end up doing worse work. No. I've just personally found that it doesn't do that, bro. In fact, it motivates you more to get even better work done. Now, when I'm writing scripts or whatever, which I just do as a hobby right now, I set an hour timer, 45-minute timer. At the moment, it's been a half-hour timer for each chapter. And I find that using my brain power to actually get everything done in half an hour and figuring out how I can actually do that just makes it so much more fun, bro. So the Pareto principle and Parkinson's law, put them together. An hour of 80-20. You pick the most important frog and you do that first of all. Imagine doing that every single day, bro. You'd be unstoppable. Literally, that's what I do. And I feel like I'm really getting ahead of people who are doing the same thing as me. Not to be cocky about it, but my ability to focus and do deep work each day is just so valuable to me. And it should be valuable to you, bro. You care about yourself and you care about being the best person that you can be. So you really should value your time and your attention, what you give it to, your ability to work. The last thing I'll quickly mention is obviously planning the day ahead. I said this before. Every day or every night time, just write out the little tasks that you want to do the next day. And then the next day, you won't have to sit there and think, right, what have I got to do? It's already there in your little book. This is the book that I've got. I'll show you quickly what I do. Here is my tasks. Hopefully there's nothing incriminating on there. And I order it in letters of what's most important. Then I just get to work, bro. That's all I've got to do. Right, you've made it to the end of this full guide. This is probably going to be the longest video that I've ever had on this channel, but there's so much to take away. There's so much value inside of this because of deep work. Deep work is one of the most important things you could probably learn and start using and adopt into your everyday life, because this is really, at least what I feel and what a lot of people say, is going to set you apart from your competition. If you sit there every morning, you just focus on the work and get the work done. The people who are dawdling and waking up at 9 a.m. or 10 a.m. or whatever, and then watching YouTube, having a shit whilst trying to think about their work, and then they come here to the computer and they just don't get much work done because they keep getting distracted by intrusive thoughts or fears of death. I'm not trying to say I don't care about them, because we need to be empathetic for people in these situations. I hope they're watching this video to figure themselves out, to actually start doing deep work and actually, have a fulfilling life. But you're going to destroy them. You will. That's a fact. Using deep work, you will get ahead of everyone else that is doing the same thing as you. What I've wrote down here is deep work equals presence. There's never a moment where you're not more in the moment than when you're doing deep work and you fall into a flow state. And presence equals the key to fulfillment. I found myself, bro, that since I've learned how to do deep work and I've started implementing it into my everyday life, I've actually never been happier. And I truly mean that. There's been moments in my life where I've obviously had more euphoric moments. I've had moments with friends or a big moment. But what I found is that in all those moments where I've been happy, really happy, euphoric, or the days recently where I've had really good productive days and I feel great by the end of it and I can fall asleep happy knowing that I've done a lot of work, it's always presence that is the key to what actually made me happy in that moment. I want to end this video with a short little story. When I was 16 years old, just for context, I've been dancing, street dancing, for pretty much all of my life, bro. And I used to have this mentor who I really looked up to. He came from London, from around the Stratford area. And I really looked up to him, all of us did. He sort of, for a long period of time, took me under his wing. But around 16 years old, I had a good year and a half straight where I just really didn't want to dance anymore. I didn't have a passion for it. And I told him this one day and he said, look, Kean, you can't let this go to waste. Like, we need you here, which was really nice to hear. He really believed in me, wanted me to keep on doing it. And we do this show every 2 years or so, just from the dance school, where we put numbers together and then we perform. The final number of the whole show, literally the whole show, bro, was a number with my own team, my mates my age. And it was a mix of us and my mentor and all of his mates, his dancing mates from Stratford, London, where we all come together. And the routine was almost like a passing of the torch moment. And in the routine, he made it so I come to the front with the people from Stratford. Like, this was my dream when I was 16 years old, bro. I wanted to be like them. I wanted to be accepted, because I didn't feel like I had always these intrusive thoughts of like, oh, I'm not good enough, oh, I'm too overweight, oh, even though I wasn't even overweight at the time. All of these stupid thoughts, oh, I'm scared of dying, oh, I don't know if my friends like me anymore, all of these silly thoughts. But in this routine, I was able to join them for a moment. And I remember because also I wanted to quit after this show, bear in mind, I was really revving myself up to do this final number. And then in the final number, this moment came. And this was the first time in so long that I was 100% present in my life. First time in so long, bro, where I felt true bliss, where I ran to the front in the routine. And then we all started doing the routine. I still remember it. All the routine and stuff. Really beautiful number. And then at the end, I was just looking out at the crowd. It was only me and my mentor on stage. This sounds like not real, bro, but I promise you. I was standing there on stage looking out at the crowd as the song started to come to a close. And I was so present. I felt like it was such a beautiful moment. And my mentor was there, stood behind me, and he was just looking at me, which I now know because of the DVD version. I didn't know this at the time. I was just looking at everyone, and I started crying. All of this had been building up. My final show, it actually didn't end up being my final show because I stayed after this, but you know, my mentor saw so much potential in me, and I was there looking out at the crowd with my final show. Present, fully present for the first time in maybe months, maybe years. And I remember on the DVD, he was looking at me, and I guess he noticed that I was crying or overwhelmed. And he just nodded. He was like, yeah, he's done it. He achieved this flow state in the middle of dancing. I achieved this state where I was 100% present in the moment, achieving my fullest potential. At least that's what it felt like at the time. And I wanted to share that story because even though it's not literally deep work, you will fall into a flow state during deep work. And that is where you will realize your maximum potential. And being present with flow is the key to fulfillment and happiness. And I think I know that really well because of not only the work I do every day right now, but because of that one moment when I was 16 years old, where my mentor saw potential in me and let me dance with him and all his people from Stratford. And I looked out at that crowd and I was fully present and I started crying. Beautiful moment. I wanted to share it with you because I hope that's somewhat of an inspiring story, because there's no better moments in life than when you're fully present. Okay, I'm going to end it there, bro. Deep work, achieving a flow state, how you set up your day using your environment, your internal triggers, your external triggers, how to get rid of them, or at least minimize them as much as possible, how to focus on the work, why this sets you above everyone else. I hope this video has been super valuable to you. This video is going to be AIDS trying to edit and get on the computer, but we're going to do it. Really try this out, bro. At least adopt, maybe even one day, just try 15 minutes without your phone where you do your focus studying or a YouTube video or something, or whatever it is you do for work. Just give it a go. I promise this will be one of the best things you ever try for yourself. I usually take the piss more in videos, but I think this was quite important because I found that this is something that brings me the most fulfillment in my life. Do me a favour, join the team of the boys, sharing my thoughts with the boys.